Every time we open a closet, place a cup on a modern table, or close a kitchen door with a glossy finish, we rarely think about its real origin. We see a smooth, neat, perfect surface. But behind that appearance, there is a massive industrial story. A story that begins with dust, with remains, with mountains of sawdust that at first glance seem to be useless. In an MDF factory, that apparent waste enters as loose, irregular, light, and messy material. They have become dense, stable, and uniform panels that then end up transformed into desks, bookshelves, cupboards, bed headboards, and furniture that occupy the center of a home. The change seems simple when we see the end result, but in reality it involves heat, steam, chemistry, pressure, millimetric precision, and production lines that work without pause. The fascinating thing about MDF is that it is not born as a solid wood board. It does not retain natural grains, knots, or cracks. It is a material reconstructed from its smallest fibers. First, the wood is reduced almost to its elemental form. Then, it is mixed with resins. Next, it is compressed under extremely high temperatures until it forms a homogeneous, smooth, and resistant sheet. And that is still not enough, because the finished board must still be cut, machined, coated, drilled, and assembled before becoming a real piece of furniture. Behind a lacquered door or a table with a matte finish, there is a gigantic chain of transformation. What begins as sawmill residue ends up as an industrial design product. That journey summarizes one of the great obsessions of modern manufacturing: extracting value from what was previously discarded, controlling every variable of the process, and producing millions of pieces at scale that, once installed in a home, seem silent and simple, as if they had always existed. But they did not exist. They were manufactured. And in that journey, the sawdust passes through machines that separate fibers, dryers that eliminate moisture, presses that exert colossal forces, and machining centers that turn an anonymous panel into the exact door of a piece of furniture. In this tour, we are going to follow that entire path. From the mountain of wood residue to the moment when the MDF already has shape, texture, hardware, and ends up occupying a place in daily life. Everything begins far from the showroom and also far from the finished furniture. It begins in sawmills, industrial carpentry shops, and recycling plants where tons of wood remains accumulate. Sawdust, shavings, offcuts, small chips, and even, in some processes, fibers coming from recovered paper. What for many is waste, for the MDF industry is raw material, not a raw material noble in appearance, but a chaotic mixture that must be sorted and purified before it can enter the heart of the factory. When those materials arrive at the plant, the first thing is not pressing or cutting, but cleaning. In that mass come impurities that can ruin very expensive equipment. Nails, staples, wires, stones, sand, or metallic fragments can appear. That is why industrial magnets, sieving systems, separators, and classification circuits intervene. The goal is simple: to leave only usable wood. In a modern line, this step is not improvised at all. Each removed contaminant prevents a mechanical failure later on. Then comes the treatment with water and steam. The residual wood enters a conditioning phase where it is washed and heated. The steam fulfills a decisive function. It softens the lignin, which is the natural component that helps hold the wood fibers together. That structure, rigid in the original trunk, must be loosened so that the material can be separated without being completely destroyed. The industry does not seek to pulverize the wood without control. It seeks to open it, to disassemble it with criteria, until obtaining a fiber suitable for forming a high-density board. There appears one of the key machines of the entire process, the defibrator or refiner. Its work marks the difference between a coarse product and a fine one. The conditioned wood enters between metallic discs that rotate at high speed. The friction, the geometry of those discs, and the pressure of the system separate the material until it becomes a set of tiny fibers. There are no thick shavings left. What comes out looks more like a spongy, damp, and light mass, something between vegetable cotton and coarse wood flour. It is the moment when the residue stops looking like residue and begins to acquire technical value. However, that recently opened fiber still cannot become a board. It has too much moisture and needs to stabilize quickly. If it is allowed to rest poorly, it clumps. If it dries poorly, it is damaged. That is why it enters a tubular dryer where it travels suspended in a current of hot air. While it moves through that duct, the excess water evaporates. It is a fast, continuous, and highly controlled step. The final moisture must remain within a precise range. Too much water ruins the subsequent compaction. Too little can also affect the distribution of the adhesive. And right in that transition, another essential ingredient appears, the resin. While the fibers fly inside the drying system or immediately after, nozzles spray an adhesive mist that coats each particle. That film is what will later allow the board to become a uniform block under temperature and pressure. In many cases, urea formaldehyde resins are used, although current technology also works with improved formulas to reduce emissions and meet more demanding environmental standards. The goal is not to soak the fiber, but to wrap it evenly. The uniform distribution of the adhesive is one of the keys to the final quality. If that layer is poorly distributed, the panel will have weak zones, irregular densities, or surface defects. After drying and resinating, the fiber is ready for a huge visual change. It no longer circulates as a cloud of particles. Now it is deposited on a wide conveyor belt, where a large continuous mat begins to form. This blanket is still soft, thick, and light. It looks more like a mattress of compacted fluff than a board, but that fibrous bed already contains the thickness, width, and amount of material that will later determine the dimensions of the final product. At this stage, uniformity rules. If the mat is more loaded on one side than the other, the panel will come out with defects. If the height varies too much, the density will also change. That is why forming systems use automatic controls, leveling rollers and sensors to distribute the material with precision. Here, the furniture does not yet exist, not even the board. A preform exists. A fragile volume that in minutes is going to enter the most brutal and decisive phase of the entire chain. The mat formed on the line has no structural rigidity. It can be cut, moved, and arranged, but it remains a loose mass. The big leap occurs when it enters the hot press. That moment concentrates the essence of MDF, because there the fibrous matter, still soft, is transformed into a compact, smooth, and dense sheet. It is not a smooth transition. It is a violent process, controlled to the extreme, where pressure and temperature work together until completely changing the internal structure of the material. The presses can be continuous or multi-opening, depending on the plant and the scale of production. In both cases, the logic is the same. The mat enters with much more thickness than it will have at the end. Then it receives an enormous compression. The trapped air is expelled. The fibers move closer, intertwine, settle, and become trapped among themselves. At the same time, the heat activates the resin. That substance, previously distributed as a thin film, polymerizes and fixes the union between fibers. The result is a solid, homogeneous, and stable body. In a modern industrial press, the temperature hovers around values close to 200 degrees Celsius and the pressure can be colossal. The important thing is not just the absolute force, but how it is managed throughout the cycle. First, it is compacted, then it is maintained. Later, the exit is regulated so that the panel does not suffer excessive tensions. Every second matters, every millimeter matters. An error in time or temperature can leave a poorly cured, swollen, brittle, or unstable board. Inside the press, something more than simple compression occurs. The density profile is also built. In many MDF boards, the outer layers remain denser than the core. That improves the surface for painting, coating, or machining. The face of the panel must come out almost perfect because later it will serve for visible finishes. If a kitchen has lacquered fronts or a door has milled moldings, that surface quality begins to be defined here. When the sheet leaves the press, it is still hot. It already has the basic shape of the board, but it cannot yet go to the furniture sector. First, it must cool down and stabilize. If it was stacked without control, it would retain internal tensions capable of causing deformations. That is why it passes through cooling systems and then through resting zones. It is a technical pause, not simple storage. The board needs to settle. Then comes the surface calibration. Large industrial sanders work both sides to bring the thickness to an exact measurement and leave the surface completely smooth. This phase is decisive. MDF is valued in part because it offers a uniform face, without protruding grains, without knots, and without visible gaps. That texture allows for even painting, decorative laminates, and finishes that imitate natural wood, stone, flat colors, or high gloss effects. Once calibrated, the panel is cut into commercial formats. The master boards leave the line with large dimensions and are then divided according to what the industry needs. Some will go to manufacturers of ready-to-assemble furniture, others to plants that produce doors, closet backs, cladding, or machined components. Before being shipped, each batch passes through quality controls where density, thickness, strength, and surface behavior are verified. An MDF board is not sold just because it looks good. It has to respond mechanically and do so consistently. At that point, the sawdust has already completely disappeared from view. No one who sees a finished board thinks of shavings, damp dust, or carpentry residue. They see a clean and precise industrial material, and that change is not minor. The MDF industry turned the irregular into regular, the unstable into stable, and the disposable into a high-value product. But there is still one more stretch to go, because a board is not a piece of furniture. Between a calibrated sheet and a finished dresser, there still exists a universe of design, cutting, machining, coating, and assembly. When the MDF leaves the boarding plant, its story does not end. In a sense, it is just beginning. The panel is the base, the support, the intermediate material on which furniture factories work. From there, each board enters another industrial chain where it is no longer just about density or resin, but about design, dimensions, hardware, textures, colors, perforations, and final finishes. The first step is usually the cutting list. Large boards are optimized with cutting software that calculates how to use every centimeter. A kitchen, for example, may require sides, shelves, doors, backs, drawer fronts, and reinforcement pieces. Everything comes from the same panel or a combination of panels. Beam saws cut with enormous precision to minimize waste and guarantee exact measurements. In mass furniture manufacturing, an error of 1 or 2 millimeters can ruin the entire assembly. Then machining comes into play. CNC centers, multi-drilling machines, and routers turn rectangular pieces into components ready to be assembled. There, perforations for dowels, hinge cups, grooves for backs, recesses, moldings, and decorative designs are made. This is one of the great advantages of MDF. It responds very well to milling and allows for complex shapes with an even surface. Solid wood can have internal variations. MDF, on the other hand, offers a much more uniform structure for this type of work. Then the coating appears. Some furniture uses melamine applied over derived boards. Others use decorative films, PVC, natural wood veneers, or lacquers. In painted MDF pieces, the surface is first sealed, then sanded again, and then receives successive coats of primer and paint. If the finish is glossy, the process may include polishing. If the goal is a molded kitchen front, the MDF is machined first and only then painted or coated. Thanks to its smooth and homogeneous texture, the material allows for very varied finishes, from oak imitations to solid colors with an almost plastic appearance. But the furniture still does not exist as a useful object. The edges are missing. When a piece is cut, its edges remain exposed. To protect them and improve their appearance, edge bandings of PVC, ABS, veneer, or similar materials are applied. Edge banding machines glue those strips with heat and pressure. Then they trim and polish them so they remain integrated into the surface. This detail, which seems minor, defines much of the final appearance and the resistance to daily use. Then comes the assembly. Operators or semi-automatic lines join sides, bases, tops, fronts, and backs. Screws, cams, dowels, minifix, slides, hinges, and closing systems enter. MDF offers good dimensional stability and a reliable surface for many of these components, although the furniture design must contemplate thicknesses, drilling distances, and mechanical stresses. A heavy door, a wide drawer, or a long shelf demand concrete technical decisions. The furniture must not only look good, it has to endure real use for years. In parallel, the final control also appears. Squaring, finish quality, door alignment, drawer closure, joint strength, and visual uniformity are checked. Only then is the product packaged and released to the market. What the consumer sees in a store is the last layer of an enormous chain. They do not see the steam that softened the lignin. They do not see the refiner that separated the fibers. They do not see the press at 200 degrees or the calibration sanders. They see a piece of furniture, a shape, a color, an object ready to enter their home. And that is perhaps the most interesting part of the whole process. MDF managed to become invisible in the best sense. It is in kitchens, bedrooms, desks, decorative panels, children's furniture, bookshelves, and interior fronts. It has fully integrated into daily life. Its presence is massive, but its origin is almost never imagined. Because behind a satin white door or a table with clean lines, there are tons of sawdust that one day seem to be worth nothing. The complete transformation has something deeply industrial and at the same time something almost symbolic. Scattered remains of wood pass through cleaning, steam, defibration, drying, resinating, pressing, calibration, cutting, machining, painting, and assembly. At each stage, the appearance of the initial material is lost a little and a new identity is gained. The dust becomes fiber. The fiber becomes a panel. The panel becomes a component. The component becomes furniture. And thus what enters the factory as waste ends up occupying a central place in a home. Silent, smooth, precise. With the serene appearance of something simple, even though behind it lies one of the most impressive transformation chains of modern industry.